Hi guys, so I want to delve further into the story of Sanballat and Tobiah, as well as Nehemiah and the rebuilding of the walls in Jerusalem. All right? So I know that I talked about how Nehemiah was able to be successful in building the wall, but what I did not go into was the different challenges that he had to go through. All right? So first, it started out when it started with Tobiah and Sanballat, right? The two figureheads I told y'all about that were the major haters of Judah at that time and of Israel. Now, funny enough, was that Sanballat was actually of Samaria, and Samaria is related to the people of Israel by blood, right? I am not able to tell you guys who that person was that ties them together because I have to go and do research, but they share a lot of DNA, right? They shared a lot of DNA and they had a lot of things in common, and yet they hated and despised each other. All right. So I want to start with the first time that Nehemiah heard what Tobiah and Sanballat had said about, even if they built the wall, right, that a fox could go up and break down that wall because of how they were hoping that it wouldn't be successful, right? So he starts out in Nehemiah 4 by verse 4, and he says, "Hear, O our God, right, for we are despised. Turn their reproach upon their own head and give them for a prey in the land of captivity. Cover not their iniquity, and let not their sins be blotted out from before you, for they have provoked you to anger before the builders." From then on in chapter 6, it shows that it says that they continued to build the wall until everything was joined together, because the people were again of one mind and they also had a mind to work. So again, when Sanballat and Tobiah heard of the progress, right? And also it begins to mention the other enemies, the Arabians, the Ammonites, the Ashdodites. When they heard that they were moving along well, all of them came together, right? So Sanballat and Tobiah invited other nations to join them to conspire and to fight against Jerusalem and the people of Judah. But in chapter 9 verse 9 of chapter 4, it says that, "Nevertheless, we made our prayer unto our God and set a watch against them day and night," because of the wickedness that they were planning, right? And so as they were conspiring and everything, the Hebrew people that were living among these people kept coming by to tell Nehemiah. So he was being updated daily. It says they came to him up to 10 times, if not more, warning them of what these people were planning to do, right? So Nehemiah fortified himself even more. So instead of him being afraid or thinking to himself like, will this work? He set out to do even more to protect himself because he knew at that point who his enemy was, right? And that is one thing that Christianity does not prepare most people for in this day and age, is that it disarms you. It tells you that although you know who your enemy is and you see him charging towards you wielding a knife as a soldier in a battlefield, it tells you to put down your knife, put down your own weapons, and begin to pray for him and embrace him and tell him, "You are loved, my brother, I forgive you." That is not the case with Nehemiah. Nehemiah knew the people that he was dealing with, He knew what their intentions were, and he was not willing to be passive or to be disarmed in any way. And so he set out to prepare the people so that with one hand, they did the work, and with the other hand, they held a weapon. This is verse 17 of chapter 4. Meaning that they were prepared at all times. Because like they say, if you stay ready, then you ain't got to get ready, right? And so he also made sure that half of the people in the work, or rather half of the people were working while the other half were protecting them and guarding them day and night, and they would change shifts, right? That is how diligent they were to make sure that they got their goals done, because they were very much aware that there were people who were trying to stop them, and they made up their minds that they would not be stopped. How many of us in this day and age, especially Black people, how many of us have that mindset, right? How many of us are willing to come together in spite of what it looks like, in spite of the dangers, of the threats, of the intimidation, of the false invitation to friendship, right? And I say this because that's exactly what happened. When Sanballat, Tobiah, and all his people saw that they were going to be unsuccessful in attacking these people who were working, they changed their tactics, right? So now in chapter 6, verse 1, it says, "Now it came to pass, when Sanballat and Tobiah and Geshem the Arabian and the rest of our enemies heard that I had builded the wall, and that there was no breach left therein, they sent unto me, saying, Come, let us meet together in some of the villages in the plain of Ono. But they taught to do me mischief or harm," right? So you see how they switched tactics real quick when they saw that, oh my God, these people are actually being successful. So why don't we do what? Befriend them, right? And that is why you see a lot of our Black people, as soon as they get successful, right? What do? They change up their associates, right? In many cases, they get all white accountants, right? Advisors, lawyers, friends, and wives or husbands, right? Because they think that they're coming up, they're leveling up, you know? What is that song that talks about you're getting your pie in the sky or something like that? We're moving on up, right? They settle for intermarriages. Not to say that intermarriages are always something that is meant to destroy a person, but for the most part, when you know that you are with somebody who historically has not only dealt with your people, but are actively keeping them down, how then can you say that you're fighting for a cause when you decide to join your bloodline with that person, right? Essentially, what you are saying is that you do not care for your people as you claim, and that you are willing to join with the people who hate you to further destroy the very people that you're fighting for. That is the pit that a lot of our people fall into time and time and time again, all over the world. And so, as the story goes, they sent messengers unto Nehemiah, telling him to do with this same message. For more than 4 times, he says in verse 4. But you know what he says to them? He replies them, the messengers, telling them, I am doing a great work, so I cannot come down. Why should I cause the work to cease while I leave it alone to come down to you? right? Meaning, who are you that I should leave this very important work of rebuilding to come to have friendship, so-called friendship, with you? So, again, they came to him more than 4 times after in the same way, until they came the 5th time. And at the end of the 5th time, Sanballat sent his very own personal servant with an open letter in his hand. And in verse 6, it says that it was written in the letter that it is reported among the heathen in Gashmu. Basically, he was saying in the letter that you and the Jews think to rebel, for which cause you built the wall, that you may be their king. So basically, Sanballat sent him a threat, saying that, oh, I see what you're doing. You don't want to come and befriend us and hang out with us. It's because you want to be a king of these rebels. You want to be a rebel. That's why you're doing all you're doing, right? So you see how they changed their course again? Where they begin to accuse him of being a rebel, right? Again, how many of us in the Black community, right, have been in causes, been in different groups, seeking to promote our well-being, only for us to be accused of being rebels, to be accused of caring more about our people, when all lives matter, right? We're being targeted, or we're being attacked for actually caring about that which concerns us, right? And yet, in our times of greatest need, we think that we are suddenly going to get help out of the sky, out of nowhere, not realizing that by disbanding ourselves and taking heed to the threats and the invitations of our enemies, that we are essentially killing ourselves and are making ourselves even more vulnerable, so that in times of need, we have no one to turn to, not even each other. So Sanballat also went ahead to accuse Nehemiah in the letter that he had also appointed prophets to try to prophesy positive things, or to prophesy things that would elevate his people, right? So to that, Nehemiah replied unto him, saying in verse 8, there are no such things done as you have said, for you are making them up out of your own heart, right? Verse 9, for they all made us afraid, saying, their hands shall be weakened from the work, that it's not going to be done. So what does he do? He now turns to the Most High. He offers a prayer in that verse. He says, now therefore, O Yah, strengthen my hands. Do the opposite of that which my enemies expect from me, of the evil words that they are trying to speak into existence against me. Right? In the same way, he met other people of his own people of Judah, who came to put fear in his heart, telling him, come, let us meet together in the house of the Most High within the temple, and let us shut the doors of the temple, for these people will come to slay you. In the night, they will indeed come to slay you. So basically, they started to use his own people to try to get to his head, right? When they saw that he was not budging, they started to mess with his mental. But you know what he replied to him in verse 11 to his brother? He said, should a man as I flee or run? And who is there that being as I am would go into the temple to save his life? I will not go in. Wow, you guys. Verse 12, it says, and lo, I perceived that Yah had not sent him. You see? So he had a spirit of perception. Because again, he wasn't working from his flesh, but from his spirit. And this is why it is important for our people to come back to the Most High before any sort of rebuilding, any sort of fixing our issues can happen. Our hearts have to be in submission to the Most High God. So again, in verse 12, it says, and lo, I perceived that the Most High had not sent him, but that he pronounced this prophecy against me, for Tobiah and Sanballat had hired him. Oh my goodness. Would you look at that? So this person who claimed to be his brother in the movement, right, was hired to come and pronounce word curses against him in the name of prophecy. But you know what the Most High told him? The Most High warned him in his heart. The Holy Spirit was working. Because believe it or not, the Spirit of the Most High was still active then. And so the Most High spoke to him immediately that this person was hired. Verse 13, therefore was he hired that I should be afraid, and in doing so sin, that they might have the matter for an evil report, that they might be able to reproach me or make up stuff against me, right? And in verse 14, again, he goes back to the Most High with a prayer, and he says, so this is a man who clearly was in tune with the Most High, right? He wasn't just working for his belly or working for his own ambition or for his glory. He was somebody that was in tune with the Most High. Hence, all the doors that were being opened unto him, even through the help of the king of the country that had taken him captive. This is a man that was full of grace and full of the wisdom of the Most High. So in verse 14, again, he cries out to the Most High. He says, Abba Yah, or my God. It says my God, but which is my Elohim or whatever the Hebrew word is, right? So he says, my God, think thou upon Tobiah and Sanballat according to these their works, and on the prophetess Noadiah and the rest of the prophets that would have put me in fear. So he tells the Most High, punish them, punish these people that have hired these people to come and put fear into my heart. This is a man that was in tune, that was kept his eyes open. He knew who was fighting, who his enemies were, and he did not bend or break to the pressure. And so in verse 15, it goes on to say that the wall was finished. After all was said and done, all praises to the Most High, Yahweh. The wall was finished on the 20th and 5th day of the month of Elul, in 52 days. So the wall was finished in 52 days, which is less than 2 months. Meaning that because he worked with his people of Judah with one mind, with their focus and reverence of the Most High, he caused them to have speed, and he caused them to have great success in such a short amount of time. Verse 16, it came to pass that when all our enemies heard thereof, and all the heathen that were about us saw these things, they were much cast down in their own eyes. That means they began to look down on their own self. For they perceived that this work was wrath of our God, which means that they knew that it was the Most High that did it. Nobody else could have done it but the Most High. right? So they began to feel bad, because one thing that we don't realize is that our enemies know who we are. They know that if we are close to the Most High, that if we do our prayers, if we come together and cry out to Him, that He will give us victory over them, right? Over them. And because they don't want, they know what will happen, and they know that we will conquer them, right? Through spiritual authority, which is what we have, because this is all about spiritual warfare, right? They try as much as possible to distract us with different things to keep our eyes away from the Most High. They use fear, they use threats, they use intimidation, they use our very own people to do it. They even, in many cases, as in the case of Mr. Sean Combs, they send people to cause him to sin, to bring him to anger, to bring him to low vibrations, so that his eyes can be distracted from the Most High, and they can use that chance and opportunity to strike. You guys, it is a deep, deep battle. And sometimes I just sit and think to myself, why haven't I been doing more? Why? It wasn't until last night that the Most High showed me that I too have been under heavy, heavy, heavy spiritual attack. Because the Most High knows, or should I say, because Satan knows who the Most High wants to use to tell the truth, to open the eyes of his people. Satan will attack the leaders, if you will, right? I will tell you guys more of this experience in a different video, because I want y'all to know what I have gone through all this while that has not only attempted to break me internally, break my mind, but also to break every aspect of my life. But it wasn't until after a 21-day fast that the Most High began to open my eyes to see the things that my enemies had been doing that I wasn't even aware of, to try to hold me down. So long story short, even after the walls had been built, Nehemiah still continued to tell us that his own people were trying to sway him to change his mind, to embrace these enemies, because they had managed to intermarry with them, with some of them, and were doing so-called good deeds. And so they were trying to tell him, like, why don't you just slow down with this thing? These people love us, right? They care about us, right? But it says that even Tobiah himself sent direct letters to him to put him in fear. But he kept going, you guys. He kept going, and he kept pushing his people to keep going. And that is how in chapter 7, verse 1, it says, "Now it came to pass when all the walls were built up," and he went ahead to not only finish up all the walls, all the crevices, all the hedges. He began to set up the doors and the porters and the singers and the Levites. So they began to organize themselves, right? It goes on to show how he began to organize people by their genealogies, by their cities, and so many things, right? So all in all, he was successful, not only with the wall, but gathering his people together to have them established in Jerusalem. All right. So this message is a big lesson for the one who has been praying, has been dreaming, has been instructed by the Most High to contribute or to lead the rebuilding of a people that have been so downtrodden for centuries, that have been put down so long that they themselves don't even think that they are worth anything. The only worth and value that they're putting in themselves, I should say we as a people are putting in to ourselves, is through music, sports, and things that hold no real value to the world at hand, right? You see nations like Iran that are leading in military capabilities. Why? Because their people are using their might, their brains, everything about them in seizing the future through the present, right? But our people, for some reason, are the only people in the world. Now, I'm not saying that our people in other countries like Africa and Caribbean are not doing their best, right? But overall, what we see is a common sickness, if you will, among our people, which is the sickness of low self-esteem, of being unable to imagine a world where we are independent to think for ourselves, to plan for ourselves, to rule ourselves, to have law and enforcement that favor our causes and our lives against the will of our enemies, against the subservient mentality that we have adapted to please the people who hate us and want to keep us down. Right? You see a people that are being ruled over by the Sambalats and the Tobias of this world. What say you? Right? What then can we do about it? For if the Most High is with us, who can be against us? And how can the Most High be with us when we are unwilling to submit to Him? Right? When we are part of different brotherhoods that promote the causes of our enemies. Right? What will become of us? O people of Judah, O people of the Most High, people of biblical Hebrew Israelite heritage, people of the Word, what are we going to do? That is the prayer that we are going to begin to offer to the Most High. Because you see, we have dealt so much in theory and spreading the news about who we are. But my question has always been, what does that mean for us as a people? Because knowing who you are is one thing, but how is the application helping you as a person in your daily life? How is it helping to enable you, to embolden you to take strides that were never taken before? That is the question. Because if prophecy says that our people are going to know who we are, then that means that nothing is going to stop it, even if they try. Because they will try, that I know. But ultimately, we are going to fulfill prophecy. And so, this story is a story that we should hold dear to our hearts, and we should think about all through this week. That all things are possible through the power of the Most High and through the coming together as in one mind to rebuild. Right? So thank you all so much for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if you would like to support my ministry in any way, I have a link up whereby you can send your token of support. All right? So thank you all so much. Please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe, and leave any comments of your thoughts and your feelings. All right? Until next time, bye-bye now.